get Admiral Franken on the call. In the meantime, have any of you served in the military? I see, Delbert, you have certainly. Anyone else served in the military? All right. Where'd you go? I lost you. John Schultz. John Schultz, and there's a gentleman here who I do not recognize, and all you have as an identifier on your iPad is iPad. So if I,
Uh,
there you go.
Julie, I'm Bill Fanter. I served with the 101st Airborne Division, and I was in their JAG shop uh, in 1970 in Vietnam.
Uh-huh. What is your perspective on what's going on right now?
Well, have you read the opinion letter by the former JAGs
In
that
Doug's column?
not Doug's column? No, I don't.
Okay.
Well, it might have been in Doug's column. It might have been where I picked it up. Anyway, I thought that was very well done. And, you know, there's a number of things that I think could be covered in this entire review. But one of the things that strikes me is what we were always dealing with over there. And when I was there in 1970, that was 2 years after My Lai. And commanding officers of the division down to the battalion level were doing everything they could to protect themselves and their command in the event of atrocities. And when something like this would take place, they were all over it. And to have, and we're very worried about the impact on their command to have an atrocity occur under their watch.
What is your take on what's happening now? And the fire
Well,
on the boats?
my take is that I don't understand why they would have been so quick to use overkill in a situation that they had been handling with more moderate techniques. That is, helicopters shooting out the uh, uh, motors and then taking prisoners. I also can't understand when they have a chance to stop these boats and take prisoners and follow the trail into where these are coming from, directly to their ports of their harbors, their safe harbors, why they wouldn't have done that. That's very valuable intel. And I can't understand why that wasn't a preferred, military approach. And of course, I'm terribly disturbed about the elimination of the JAGs upstream, who they were cut out of this thing from the very beginning. Where did the oversight go, as well as the IGs?
Okay, thank you. It looks like Admiral Franken is on the call. Is that right? Michael, are you here?
Hello, Julie.
Hello. Thank you for joining us. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day. So I don't know
I'm
how much of
I'm
that call you heard.
I'm dreadfully sorry that I'm tardy. I was on a Zoom that I could not jump off of. So regrets to everybody.
No,
Please.
totally. No, we were just getting going on a conversation. I was asking those on the call who had ever served in the military to first voice their opinion about what's going on. But why don't, now that you're here, you have an expertise that is certainly valuable.
Well, so the gentleman who was just speaking, indeed, for a takedown, regardless of the rationale for a takedown at sea. And this is the protocols of which are covered under a litany of international lateral, multilateral, regional protocols. There are layers upon this, and what we're doing today, no way relates to any of those historically or present day, certainly not legally. So the manner in which you would do this, it just so happened, if I can, I'm going to talk rather scatterly here.
Please.
I drafted the Maritime Interdiction Executive Order that became Proliferation Security Initiative worldwide. 100 and some countries signed on when I was working for Don Rumsfeld. So even in a situation of weapons of mass destruction, chemical, biological, fissile material, the lethal option is the last resort. And as a Commodore, for a 10 and a half month period in the Persian Gulf and the Indian Ocean, running into the Bab el-Mandeb Red Sea. So there were weapons movements, drug movements, WMD knowledge, terrorists, named individuals that were sorting through. We did 700 and some stops in a 10 and a half month period, 24 ships and 4 submarines. So this is a well-trotted technique to do. We did fire warning shots. We did fire disabling fire, and that's done by a very practiced target person to take out the outboard engines. And we did warn individuals and had them heave to and stop. Never did we kill anybody in the process of doing this. And I was just one Commodore in a historical 5, 6, 8 years of doing this. Previous to that, in the 80s, during the difficulties between Iran and Iraq, we did stops then as well, and we did not resort to lethal force. So the manner in which you do a takedown like this today, we're using today's technology, is if you've got and you obviously do, have the intelligence from the source and the destination, and you put up a network, an architecture that captures written word, verbal, satellite, digital, coded message traffic in both locations. Then you jam VHF, UHF, SHF, cell phone on the target, so nothing releases that target, and then you physically stop it. And the stopping an outboard motor like that is not hard at all. Matter of fact, the Coast Guard, I think, brags at something well over 90% surety in stopping these boats. And these guys running these drugs, listen, they don't want to risk their lives doing this. They get paid $500 for the run, which is a king's ransom to them, but it's not worth dying over. And they know when they're looking at a warship that their days are numbered if they shoot back, etc. So, and just so you know, when we had people on ships that would shoot back, generally speaking, the Confederates on the ship would say, "Knock it the hell off." We just let them shoot a few rounds, and that would be the end of it. So, and then you capture the ship, the boat, and you go through the pocket litter as we talk it, the cell phones. And the key is, once that stoppage is done and you arrest the inhabitants of the boat, you take pictures, take the evidence, and you sink the boat as long as it's environmentally a sound thing to do. And then you listen to the warble, as we say, both in the two destinations ashore. And people talk. And when that's done, who was on the boat? Who launched them? And the conversation goes over here. When were they supposed to arrive? Where was the product going to? Who's supposed to pick it up? You build this entire architecture of the organization. This is how you take down drug runners and terrorist entities. Matter of fact, the fact that there were no strikes on the London Olympics had to do with the takedown very similar to this, where both the host nation, um, my my staff, we put this thing together, identified all of the individuals that were involved in this, and picked them up. In most cases, some we had more difficulty picking them up. So this is how it's done. We not this this very rough-hewn process of sinking ships, sinking boats, and there is no real intelligence associated with that whatsoever. It is sophomoric, um, primitive, cruel, and horrendously illegal. There is no aspect of it. I mean, frankly, I tweeted a while back that this puts us on par as the most blatant um, violator of the rules of armed conflict or rules of law of any nation next to Russia, and I hold to that. We are ruining our reputation. Sorry for
Admiral,
going on.
are you putting yourself at risk by speaking out against the administration?
Probably.
Well, it's not. I'm not laughing. I mean,
Yeah.
could someone say that you know, your pension is revoked or anything like
Sure. Yeah. So did my wife talk to you or something?
that? No, 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 no.
Yeah. So, it has to be said. Um, has to be said.
You know, you and I have had conversations that have not been part of a recorded podcast that's going to go up on and be seen by many others. So I want to ask you something that you know will be on the record, and that is, how do you feel to see the United States of America doing things like this? I mean, you swore an oath to the Constitution. Yes, you're speaking out, but how do you feel?
Well, yeah, it really denigrates the uh, the effort that we put into this previously. And so Jay Johnson, the former Homeland Security Secretary and lawyer for Obama and Secretary in the Defense Department, did a op-ed in the New York Times today, which talks about this. The Just Justice, I believe, website has a long dissertation on the legalities of this in the most intricate detail. It too is exceedingly well versed. This denigrates the United States. It's not just me; it's all of us. We're all in on this. We are U.S. citizens. We may wish we had some foreign a passport when we go some places. This is excruciatingly bad. Here's a data point. If the second tap, which is a terrible word to say about the two people's death, the second shot at that boat was so ill-advised by those who did it after the fact that the next time what, 10 days later or so, when we had two more survivors, they repatriated them the next day or shortly thereafter. That tells you that, oops, we know should not have done that. Now, I know Mitch Bradley. I can't say how I know him, but we served tangentially together, and he's a exceedingly good man and a professional. I cannot relate the two to what happened in these attacks. And but I also know Admiral Alvin Housley, He and I served in the joint staff together in the Joint Operations Directorate, which is the entity that brings up all the deployment orders, executive orders, all the orders that go to the president. As a matter of fact, that was my job to bring him to SecDef and the administration. And and you go through the legalities of this. And we make mistakes. God knows we make mistakes. The more you do it, the more mistakes you have. There's a correlation, but you also improve the process, and they're not so glaring. These aren't even trying a process. This is have gun, will shoot, and and I fear that we are the and don't mistake that these are combatants because we don't. This isn't a legal combat. They are not. This is not a rule a rule of armed conflict violation because there is no armed conflict. All of these definitions don't hold to this. The only definition that really holds is a state-sanctioned murder.
Okay. I'd like to invite some of the people on the call to ask you questions, if that's all right with you. And, you know, I know your time is,
I already said the unforgivable thing about a state-sanctioned murder. So,
yeah, well,
well,
oh, well. All right, Mary McCarthy, I'm going to call on you first, then Robert Hopkins, and then Carl Schilling and Susan Beckman. So if you would turn your microphone on in that order, that would be great. Mary McCarthy, you're up first.
Oh, my question is, Admiral, do you have any thoughts on this newly released national security strategy? And by the way, thank you for your expertise and experience and time today.
this one,
God bless people from Northwest Iowa.
um, so the national, yeah. Well, first of all, it starts out as a campaign document, um, and you know, some aspects of it I'm okay with. The to improve the acquisition process in DoD to shorten the approval process. I mean, there's a lot of things that we can always improve, but we shouldn't be rough-hewn in the process. The abandoning of our European allies, we will pay for that many-fold if that holds true. You know, it's very similar to zeroing out climate change directives that this administration is doing. Industry is not going to buy off on that because you can't change these large movements of technology into something that needs to be marketable worldwide if you are regressive in your thought process. So our automobile manufacturers will give lip service to what this administration is doing with EPA and technology and internal combustion engines, but generally speaking, they're not going to change. So similar to our national security strategy, this too will change. Now, it is a big complication if we can't control one of the chambers in the legislature. It's also a large ailment that we're facing. The fact that I don't think anybody thinks the Supreme Court is fair and balanced. It is become somewhat of a stooging process to the executive branch. And consequently, the national security strategy. The good news here in the national security strategy already as well is this is for 2025. So by my watch, it's good for 3 more weeks. Um, and then out with the old and in with the new. Although, if past is prologue, I would expect the 2026 national security strategy to be worse. Um, and that's probably more than you want to hear about that, Mary.
Okay, thank you, Mary. I'm going to now go in order of people who raised their hands, and Robert Hopkins and the others. If you really do want to talk, I was just calling on you. So if you do have something you'd like to ask, please do raise your hand. John Schultz, you're next.
The statement on by the administration on national security strategy. Charlie Sykes mentioned today that a Kremlin spokesman said this: the adjustments that we see correspond in many ways to our vision. You can take it at that, take it from there.
Yeah, yep. Indeed. Yep, John, that's spoken like gospel.
Okay, Ed Flaherty from your closet. Hello, Ed. Oh, your mic is off now. Try again. There you go.
Mike,
Yes, sir.
your other peers in the Navy, retired admirals or other officers, I mean, what are their thoughts? And do you have any empathy for the crew on the aircraft carrier and his flotilla?
Ed, I would expect, well, with to Sigma, that my Confederates, past and present, know in their heart of hearts that we are making a crucial mistake. And when they say this was approved by a lawyer, what they're not approving is by a uniform lawyer. This is by an appointed civilian. We got rid of most of the senior lawyers. When you get rid of a 3-star lawyer, your head JAG for your service, you lose the ability of that person to sit in the tank, which is the innermost decision-making body in the Department of Defense. And consequently, you're out of the picture. And you will get somebody who more than likely did a stint at the Heritage, and that is your legal advice. Most of my, so I was at an event, a couple of events over the weekend. There's not a dry eye in the place, and we are generally uniformly disgusted by the process.
Both sides of the aisle, Michael?
Yeah, at my level, many of us went through our careers and never voted because you're voting for your boss, and who else does that? We served whoever was in charge, and Dave Petraeus has said this out loud a few times, and we are fine with that. I did not get political until I needed to in the first Trump administration.
Okay. What was the incident that propelled you?
The election in November of 16.
Okay, rather than broad. All right. Bryce Oakley, you're next.
Good afternoon, Admiral. I'm going to ask an Admiral question. Flash forward. Admiral Mitch Bradley could be brought up on charges for court-martial. That may be theoretical, but it has been discussed. I understand under the Code of Military Justice that a jury of peers, which would be other admirals, would be the jury pool that would be selected to judge his guilt or innocence. Would you briefly discuss what that process is? Because it will be in the news and people are speculating about it.
Yeah. Sir, my expectation is the president will pardon everybody involved in this process, and which makes the discussion moot, frankly. But the process is a 3-person panel, and he did this as a 3-star. So there would be 1 3-star and two 4-stars. I did this for some other malfeasance issues as well. I was the senior person on our board where you very solomonically choose what the right answer is by weighing all the evidence and looking at the attenuating in extenuating circumstances. So that's what would happen. But the rumors are already going around that uh, ex um, this has already been an issue, and this is how I think this president um, garners people's attention, because he assures them that if you counter me, I will not give you blanket pardon. And that's why you're seeing people that go down a spiral of inequity.
Well, I'd be concerned. Let me follow up if I might. If I'm an admiral, I think it would be a significant blemish on my record if the president pardoned me. I would think that that would be a negative.
Yeah, there's very few cases in history where a presidential pardon was issued for a military officer.
Yes.
Um, and this president is going to, I assure you, will be unique in that.
Thank you.
I mean, he pardoned the former president of Honduras.
My question was really focused on if that panel found Admiral Bradley not guilty. What kind of that's a pretty brave
Yeah,
decision to make.
there's no basis for that non-guilt. I mean, there is not a thread that you could pull that would justify a not guilty.
Okay.
I mean, it wouldn't come to that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's see. Michael, I want to check in with you because I know I told you we'd only be a half an hour, and this definitely could go longer, and I want to honor that commitment with you. So tell me how much time you have, and
I was tardy joining you, so please proceed.
we totally understand. Okay. Robert Hopkins, do you have a comment or question you'd like to bring to the group? And then Rick Moraine, followed by Carl Schilling and Laura Bellin.
Thank you, Julie. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, the Admiral touched on it a moment ago, and all I can think of is that we no longer have three branches of government, and with the Supreme Court being just an appendage, what could the future hold over the next 3 years? Here I'm in Arizona, so we're all cheering for Mark Kelly and his pushback to his absurd, all the absurd things that was said about what that video contained, the six others. Um, I mean, I don't know. I always look for, where hope can spring, and with three branches, it can, but.
Well, I think you're
We're only
going to
two.
see. Sorry.
No, please, excuse me.
Please. Well, I think if I can speculate, I do some legislative affairs for a couple of entities, and I think what you'll see, so I talk to both sides of the aisle, quite frankly, and every week. So what you're getting, what I sense is a much more flat perspective on the Republican side. And my expectation is that spines will get stiffer. And the question that what I would ask after that is, would that matter? And it may not matter.
Right.
Okay. Thanks, Bob. Carl Schilling, then Laura, and then Susan. Carl, you need to turn your mic on. There you go. Oh, no, still can't hear you, Carl. I'm going to go to Laura while you figure that out. Laura? I can't. No, Laura, you're muted. Okay, you're a pro.
Okay, sorry about that. Rookie mistake. So I am not allowed to participate in Senator Grassley's conference calls with reporters, but based on the reporting in the Des Moines Register, in his most recent call last Wednesday, he was asked about these strikes on these boats. And he said that the commander in chief has a responsibility to protect the American people. And then he said, quote, And what I'm reading complaints about Trump doing in this war on drugs, I didn't hear anybody raise questions about President Obama conducting similar strikes in Libya, end quote. So I'm just wondering if you can differentiate from a legal perspective or military perspective, what would be the differences that you see between the Obama administration strikes in Libya and what's happening right now with these boats off the coast of Venezuela?
Well, it was the Obama administration. It was also the Trump administration in Libya. Um, and there was a thing called the AUMF, which is the authorization of military force and there was a finding uh, similar to that. It was regional and it was directive at force structure, and that got expanded as OEF and OIF proceeded apace, and also those were always multinational events, which and were heavily routinized from a legal perspective. And Libya, I'm extremely knowledgeable of because uh, from 15 to 17, that was part of our operation.
You
So,
mean NATO, when you said multilateral, that means NATO allies were involved or who was involved?
well, in Libya in particular, the French, the Brits, some local groups, the the Tunisians, the Algerians, the Chadians, the Egyptians. I mean, a couple of islands, Pantelleria, the Italians. I mean, many other entities were involved in that, and everybody looked at it from a legal perspective before any of those operations were conducted. And did we make any mistakes? Yes, that's always done. But if you go through the press during that time in Libya, I think you'd be hard pressed to find any situation where a non-combatant was harmed. And it's very unique in that regard.
Okay, thank you. Good question, Laura. Carl, you ready to roll?
I believe so. You can hear
Yes.
me?
Yes.
I had, I guess, a comment and a question for the Admiral. But when I was in Vietnam, yes, the officers did try to emphasize the military code. But every once in a while, I would see a soldier like Hegseth with a T-shirt that would say, "Kill them all, let God sort them out." And that seems to be official policy now. But the question I had was, is it possible that this really isn't even about drugs, it's about oil, and that Trump is trying to egg Venezuela into a position where we can invade and change administration so that they won't confiscate Chevron's oil assets?
Um, thank you, Carl. Good questions. So I'm going to answer on two parts. Firstly, the striking survivors at sea is not in the same realm as hitting combatants ashore, even survivors of a first strike ashore. At sea protocols are entirely different, and it goes back to biblical times and before Greek times, where your first and foremost duty at sea is to render aid, always, regardless of a combatant, etc. Looking back at World War II, the U-boats had horrendous losses, and yet three of the commanders of those U-boats, I think it was three, maybe two, were tried after the war for machine gunning survivors, and they were summarily hung in Nuremberg. That's how serious this is. I mean, Americans were not killed for the atrocities that we did during the war, and we were guilty as well. But those individuals did time, and their careers were ruined. So regarding Venezuela, I believe that oil does not play a primary role. It's rather the South Floridians, principally Cuban expats, which are a powerful subsection of Florida and generally sway towards Republicans these days. Donald Trump was pushed to them an assurance that he will do everything in his power to overthrow the government of Cuba. And since Russia left Cuba 15, 20 years ago, due to lack of interest and lack of money, the Cubans have sought elsewhere, and they are now provided quite a bit of support from Caracas. And so the logic is that disrupting Venezuela makes the support for Cuba become more feeble, and which leads to an insurrection on Cuba. That is my perspective. That's kind of high science from an international perspective, but I don't believe the oil is the overarching consideration, since we use it today because it's a derivative of oil that's heavily used in heavy machinery. We can get it elsewhere. And oil on the international market is reasonably plentiful today. Although Honduras, if we want to stray along here, I think Honduras is purely an opportunity for the administration. I'm speculating here to get an opportunity to build a tax-free zone and a holiday spot, a la Gaza, as he discussed it. I think it's as minuscule and as small in the true sense as that.
Okay, thank you, Carl. Susan Beckman, you ready?
Yes, 100 questions, but I'll try to narrow it down to the last one that came up. Thank you for being here with us today. And when you spoke about being with other people over the weekend, and I think about the young people in the military, whether it's the National Guard all the way through any of the services, and then we hear about the resignations of generals and the people at the top. And where are we going to be when the need is there for any kind of cohesive loyalty or sense of purpose among our people serving in the military? I find it very hard to imagine what, from the young people that are signed up, and as I said, with the Guard, National Guard members, and then with all the resignations in the higher levels. How do you see that any morale being maintained?
So, hi, Susan. So my expectation when this began in the Caribbean was that this was done by contractors. And contractors were flying MQ-1s, and you can buy these weapons on the international market. And they were done as an entity separate from the United States to provide a degree of separation from culpability. That was my initial expression, because no way would the U.S. military be involved in this. And I think I said this to Tom Harkin and a few others, probably to Laura Bellin as well, and Julie Gamick. So, and I held to that for weeks. You can't possibly say the U.S. military is involved in this. And then my thoughts drifted because of the explosions that I saw and the weapons that were being used, that I thought were being used, that it's the agency that's doing it. And the agency has different permissions to do this covert actions. And then I was absolutely taken aback to learn that the United States military is involved in this. So along with that same line of thinking, I am certainly fallible with my thought process and my trust in my fellow humankind and my institution and those that swore an oath to the Constitution. But I am confident, having said all that in the end, the United States military knows who its master is, and it's not an individual.
Well, let's hope.
Thank you. Let's hope. I'm going with your thought. I'm going to believe in that.
Thank you, Susan. All right, let's see. Rick Moraine, you are on the call. You are a member of the Iowa Writers Collaborative. I'm so thankful for that. And Barry Pyatt is another member of the collaborative. Bob Schreck, you served in the military. I'd love to get your involvement here before we wind up this call. So let's start with Rick Moraine. Rick?
Thank you, Julie. Admiral, it's great to see you again.
Sure.
You said that this is the most egregious violation of law that, in your opinion, and I couldn't agree with that more. And maybe you have answered my question before, just now, but we have had other violations of law, special ops, black ops,
Yep.
SEALs, and so forth. And in my mind, those are more like good trouble, and I have trouble distinguishing in my mind why the one is okay and the other one isn't. Can you enlighten me on that?
Yes. So please. So it is the mistakes that we made previously. There's an acquiescence that we got over, but this one seems to be one that we can't quite get over. Didn't quite catch the question.
Well, I think we have had other violations of law.
We have, yeah,
in
absolutely.
military, international affairs that have also been egregious, and they have resulted in civilian death and so forth. But in my mind, those seem to be okay because they
Oh yeah.
follow policies of America that I guess I'm okay with.
Mhm.
But in terms of actual reality, there isn't that much difference.
You're absolutely correct. Now, the difference is at sea, defining who your target is a lot easier. You know who your target is. So you don't accidentally hit a ship, a single ship out in the middle of the ocean, or boat, as the case may be, um, uh, as a mistake. Now, we make mistakes on land because it's a much more congested environment, and oftentimes there has to do with signal analysis and cell phones and other things that come into play, topography and weapon accuracy issues. When you miss on land, sometimes it matters where it lands. And at sea, it often doesn't matter so much as long as you're not a turtle. So it makes a little bit difference. It's not the same. At sea, it's much more, it's much clearer. And yes, we have made mistakes in the past. When we do, there's always a stop the action. How did this happen? Who's responsible? Who didn't do their job? Where can we improve so this doesn't happen again? There's always a huge retro inspection done. This operation that we're doing, it just looks like they get more testosterone up.
Okay, thanks. So I don't know if there are any other questions or comments, but I'm going to wrap it up here shortly. But first, there's some huge systemic problems with all of the people with experience and high rank that have left. How do we fix that going forward?
So systemically, the fact that we've broken China in what from a design perspective, Julie, from a administrative and what our core, our nucleus, we've lost our North Star. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I think of all the things that have happened, cutting USAID, yeah, all of these things that have just gone bang. I mean, every day it's something else, it's something else, it's something else. And we seem to be galvanizing around this issue because you can see a couple of human beings hanging on to a boat without defense and being blown up. And somehow that is an atrocity that is galvanizing people that maybe some of these other things haven't had the same impact. But they're there and they're real and they've been happening almost on a daily basis. How does that get fixed?
Well, I don't recall any op-ed in any newspaper in the United States that's favorable to any of this.
Yeah,
There's this, there's
and they
this, there'll be this.
excuse me, all newspapers endorse Kamala Harris too. But
Um, so you know, I have faith that our system will bounce back. The problem is, I can't tell you I've got 100% faith in the 26th election.
oh,
I'm just not. I believe. Just think, we have another year to go.
by faith in the election, do you mean that the veracity of it, or do you mean that
The fact that this president mentioned that elections can, he was remarking regarding Ukraine, so remarking jokingly to his people in his orbit, just think, because the country is at war, then you don't have to have an election. Not a bad deal, is it? Something to that effect.
Okay, Barry Pyatt, you're going to have the last word here. Last question.
Oh no.
Oh,
We could go on all night, I'm sure, but I'm not going to do that to you.
yeah.
Go ahead,
Well,
Barry.
this is in the realm of how do we fix it as well. We're in a pretty difficult spot if you want to try and stop this nonsense, and that's too nice of a word for it. With the commander in chief and the secretary of defense, all in favor of it. Is an election that is actually recognized the only thing that can stop this, or is there something that we as people, citizens, should be demanding of somebody that could put an end to this?
I, um, Barry, I don't want to say what I have in mind, um, but I do believe that if there's an election and it is favorable to a more mindful mindset, then it doesn't mean that's the win all of all. I do believe that this administration will do everything in their power to set aside whatever branch of government becomes friction to their going forward.
Right. So
There are every day there is something that would be inimical to the good name of an administration in the past. Uh, every day. And we cannot, none of us could go through and list the 30 most egregious instances of that. There's too many. We've lost, we've forgotten them. And that is somewhat the plan. Go fast, pepper the listening audience with more issues than they can possibly comprehend, pursue court cases that become yesterday's news, and decided by a higher court, set asides. There's a dystopian element to this.
it sounds like the answer is no.
Is there anything, is there anything those of us on this call, those of us listening individually can do?
Yeah, I think writing letters to editors, being involved in social media in a very kind, I'm on social media. I do not, I resist name calling. I never lie, and I don't over exaggerate. I just kind of report and give my sense. And when the listening audience, I think the most was like 8.2 million people railed against me one time on X of all things. That is not a bad thing. because when you are flat and logical, people have a tendency, they get pissed, but over time it works to chip away. And what I've noticed is my Trumpian friends have gotten quieter, quieter, and more quiet. To the point of one in particular is going to be a house guest of us over Christmas.
Okay.
And I would have welcomed him anytime, even in the height of his Trumparianness. But the fact that he said, "Hey, man, I come to your house over the holidays," and I'm sure he's not going to come to poison us or anything.
We shouldn't joke like that.
I shouldn't laugh about that. Yeah.
Oh, no. Well, Admiral Michael Franken, I cannot thank you enough for taking time out of your day to be with us. And I'd just like to say to those on the call, we have a unique thing going here. And to be able to get somebody of Michael Franken's stature and expertise is so, I'm so grateful that you were able to do this, Michael, and so grateful for those of you on the call. Please tell your friends that we're doing this and spread the word, because it matters to hear somebody like Michael Franken as mainstream media has become more and more in silos, and this kind of dialogue is not taking place anywhere else that I know of. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Michael, your microphone went off. I don't know if you said something pithy and profound, but
Oh, I'm still hot, I believe.
yep.
I do hope that Iowa has a Democratic senator and we win at least 2 House seats. Iowa owes this nation that.
Okay. Thank you very much. We owe you
Yeah,
a
please.
lot. Thank you.